Greetings, everyone. Happy Pride Month and welcome to our Pride Sunday Soul Care, a moment to pause, process, and care for ourselves. We are so glad that you are here with us this Sunday evening or afternoon, depending on where you are joining us from. My name is Jocelyn Spence, and I serve as the Director of Mental Health and Wellness for the National Benevolent Association of the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ. And with me this evening, co-hosting with me, I will let Reverend RJ also introduce themselves.
There we go. I was trying to unmute. Hello, everyone. My name is Reverend RJ Robles. You can call me RJ or Rev RJ. My pronouns are he, they, and I am currently joining you all from the region of Tennessee, in where I am reside in Nashville. And I'm so happy to be here with y'all on this evening. Happy Pride. Is super, super important to just be able to come together, to pause and to celebrate, to do some honoring, to do some rituals together, and to center ourselves this Pride Month, this Pride season, and to know that we have each other. And a little bit more about me. If I can go ahead and share some more, I am a minister of the region of Tennessee, where I have been ordained the last 3 years, and it's been an amazing ride with this church. And I am a member of New Covenant Christian Church. My home congregation is a predominantly Black congregation, where I serve as an Afro-Latino, queer, and trans minister and member of the church. So I'm so excited to be here. I'm also trained as a Reiki practitioner and as a life coach, and I work with transgender youth across the country, providing coaching sessions to them as needed, and their families and their loved ones. And I also work for the local government here in Nashville, doing work around diversity, equity, and inclusion in the city of Nashville. So again, that's me, and I'm so excited to be here with y'all for this intentional time together.
Yes, thank you, RJ, for introducing yourself. And I will also note a little bit for you all about our soul care process and a little bit more about NBA if you are not aware that the National Benevolent Association is a general ministry of the Disciples Church, and we collaborate with leaders and with health and social service organizations to strengthen and transform communities through compassion, healing, and justice. We provide education, companionship, inspiration, and resources for organizational and leadership development for health and social service ministries. And all of our work is grounded in our historic mission of justice and advocacy. And so holding these soul care spaces, having these opportunities for people to come together, to take a moment, to be with one another, to learn skills and tools that will be able to help us with our mental health and our wellness, but also paying particular attention to the justice piece, and making sure that marginalized communities have those spaces, and that we are prioritizing compassion and care to them is important for us. So we do want to make a note for you all that this soul care experience is being recorded, and it will be available for future viewing on our site. And you can follow along via automated transcriptions using the AI generated captions. So if you see the CC button at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you can tap that button there so that you can get the automated transcription. And so for those of you who are with us, we certainly would love to hear where you are joining us from, anything that you want to drop in the chat throughout our time together this evening. We do want it to be interactive, and so we invite you to share in the chat where you're joining us from, to share in the chat answers to the questions and comments as we're going throughout our time together. And I also realized I didn't say too much about me, but I will note that I'm coming into this space as someone who has been an activist in the past, you know, a licensed therapist, a yoga teacher, someone who has cultivated a lot of skills, also a disciples minister, cultivated a lot of skills to be able to hold these spaces for us, and to be present with us and attend to the needs that people have. And so I'm grateful that we get to share this space together this evening.
Before we get started, I also want to shout out Disciples LGBTQ Plus Alliance, which I completely forgot to mention and uplift, but I would love to take the time to do so now. If you've not heard of this ministry within the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ, we, the LGBTQ Plus Alliance, are members of the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ. We're called to join in God's work of transforming the Christian church into a more just and inclusive church that welcomes persons of all gender expressions and sexual identities into the full life and also leadership of the church. And so we always invite and encourage folks anywhere, wherever you might be joining, gathering us from, to know that you always have a seat at this table, and that this table is a place at the table for all in the Christian church. And so we're just so thankful for Soul Care Pride, and for Soul Care Sessions, and for the National Beloved Association and this partnership to continue to support and uplift the mission of Alliance Q. So thank you so much.
All right, and I see we have California with us in the Zoom room this evening. And so welcome. Thank you for being here. And for others who are in this space, wherever you are coming from, we're so grateful that you have taken the time to be with us this evening. So as we are welcoming you, we'll transition now into our opening centering. See, we have Missouri here as well. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And so I will hand it over to Reverend RJ to move us into our centering time.
Of course. So welcome, welcome. Feel free to keep engaged in the chat throughout this time together, and share where you're joining us from this evening. So I would like to share from a book of some dear colleagues of mine. It's called The Black Trans Prayer Book. And it is co-edited by J. Mace III and Lady Dane Figueroa Adidi. These are two trans colleagues of mine who have been doing a lot of work as community organizers, as practitioners, as healers, as workshop facilitators across the country. And they threw together this anthology of a book that centers the voices of Black trans folks, and specifically those theological and spiritual voices. And so one of the readings that I will want us to center with and kind of start us off during our time together is what's called A New Creation Story. And this was written by my friend Lady Dane Figueroa Adidi. And so I'm now going to begin reading from her piece called A New Creation Story. And it goes like this. A temple hymn to the creation of the universe. In the beginning, there was God, there was Goddess, there was the Great Spirit, the universe, there was Allah, there was the all, the us. There before there were first days, before there were first nights, there was the every knowing of being. When your gnome dances the serpent, Orion is born. See, God created the world that she gave 1,000 begotten sons. Yemaya is the mother of all, the goddess thought, and so it was. World is being born, the world is being born, the world is being born. And then there was longing, a longing to experience what will be, a longing of knowing what was already known. And from that longing came the first songs of creation, and the portal between thought and possibility opened, and the loud symphonic chorus of being arose into the then. And it is said, God said, "This is good." Good as in right, good as in more than nice, good as in perfect. God is good. God good. Good, good, good. When grandmother spider embraces the sun, God created peace. One day heaven and earth can know each other. Yemaya is the mother of all, the goddess thought, and so it was. World is being born, the world is being born, the world is being born. And as solar systems sang their hymns, on countless worlds the waters stirred. On one world, a planet azure, like the first waters, dark like the first waters, gender full like the first waters. God danced. Her body reverence, his body reflective, their body the holiness of reverence. The waters in their wombs stirring, they gave birth, they were nature, and nature became their doula. Fate releases stories from their loom, woven in hope, spun in promise like grandmother's webs, they mirror stars, the universe sings. The first and last breath has a name, heaven and earth laid together. Yemaya is the mother of all, the God thought, and so it was. The world is being born, the world is being born, the world is being born. Made from starlight, made from sun, made from moonbeams, made from 21 elements. The universe clothes your wonder in flesh, adorns your magic in lifetimes, divine hands, crafting creation with thoughts. The underworld has its place. The heavens have their place. The ephemeral has its place. The eternal has its place. The wings of angels have their place. The tears of God have their place. The laughter of being has its place. The green, the water, the flame, the wind have their place. The many and the one have their place. Gender is a construct. Science evolves each day. The eternal knows her name. Yemaya is the mother of all, the God thoughts, and so it was. The world is being born, the world is being born, the world is being born. Pleasure adorns creation, defiant, deep, splendidly dynamic. Pleasure also has their place. Time has her place, gathering the sacred robes of fates. Her shoulders have upon them written imagination. She has God's ear. The goddess has God's ear. They write upon the parchment of time. They write countless versions of seconds. From the garden they spring, from the heavens they are given flesh. Star people, have you returned again? Star people, are you flesh once more? Star people, do you hold the mirror to the refrain? The world is being born, the world is being born again, the world is being born. On a tablet of story, the pen of God is writing. The thoughts of God tell a story, the word of God crafts a tale. Thought creates the world creates the word creates the world. Life, death, and rebirth are a cycle. That which cannot die will not die. That which is eternal always is. Yemaya is the mother of all. Grandmother Spider brings the sun. Nut and Geb hold the in-between in their embrace. The world is born. We have labored. The world is born. We have given birth. The world is born. We have willed it. The world is born. Divinity has made it so. Amen.
Wow, amen. Thank you for that, RJ. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was a beautiful reading. So we're gonna move into the next part of our time together. And I think at this place, it might be helpful for us to move into RJ, our moment of reflection, and then going into sharing. a bit about the history?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to move into a moment of silence and reflection. And as we do that, I will invite you all, wherever you are, to really get yourself centered. We'll take a couple of breaths to get ourselves centered into this space of reflection. When you think about soul care, pausing is one of the ways that we engage in taking care of our souls. And so I do invite you where you are to practice this art of pausing with us. And wherever you are, allowing yourself to feel comfortable in your seat. And if you would like to close your eyes, you can. If you want to just gaze at a spot on the floor, you can. And in a few moments, I will invite you to take a look at the screen because we will have some images that we want to reflect on. But for right now, we can just pause and just breathe. And I invite you to place your feet flat on the floor, straighten your back, open the airway in your body, and breathe. And as you breathe, try to gradually slow your breath. And notice your heart rate slow its pace. Notice your body softening. In this space, we welcome in the presence of God. In the midst of chaos, crisis, uncertainty, the daily ebb and flow of life, we can be still and know that we are abiding in the presence of God, the breath that sustains us, the wind that guides us, and the source that connects us, even in the midst of being in separate spaces tonight. Just breathe. Feel the presence of the Spirit, reminding you you are not alone, that we are not alone. And breathe. As we juggle a myriad of emotions and experiences, highs and lows, let us not forget to breathe and pause to slow down our racing minds. Just breathe here. You can breathe deeply. Or you can continue your regular pace. We pause to honor whatever emotions come up for us. We pause to allow our souls to catch up to the moment. We pause as a practice of accepting our limits, recognizing we don't have to figure everything out in this moment or by ourselves. And here in this moment, if you take a look at the screen, we pause for a moment of reflection and remembrance for the lives that were lost during the Pulse Club shooting in 2016, the lives that were lost in the Club Q shooting just last year, as well as the survivors and all who were impacted by those moments of violence. We pause for the 31 recorded trans deaths, lives lost this year, and that is just what was reported, when we know that there have been many more. We pause for those who are navigating challenging mental illness, grief, chronic pain, loneliness, conflict, and other challenges every single day. We pause for those who cannot show up as their full selves because of the threat of violence or fear, for needing resources and whatever else, the systemic violence. We pause. So let us pause in this moment, and we'll play a little bit of a song and just pause for a moment of reflection. In this time of reflection, you may want to just look at the faces on the screen. You may remember your own stories or others in your life. You may take this time to pray or to cry, or to just be with others. Let us pause. We pause in this moment to share our griefs, our memories, our care. We pause to receive care. So just breathe. And I invite us all to take in 3 deep breaths together. Inhaling and exhaling. Inhaling and exhaling. Inhaling and exhaling. You're invited to share with us in the chat anything that has come up for you as we've just been in this time together so far, as we have remembered all that people are experiencing and all who have been lost.
So, as we remember those that have been lost, it is so important that as the LGBTQIA plus community, those of us who identify as queer and trans, and our beloveds that we take this time during Pride to also recognize that there would be no Pride without our ancestors. There would be no Pride without two symbolic people whose lives they gave to this movement, to the queer movement, to the trans movement of liberation, to even us being able to gather as a community during Pride to celebrate Pride Month. And so I would be remiss if I failed to mention the important work of my foremothers, Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera. And I bring them up to share with you all a little bit of the history of Pride Month, and also what was known as the uprising of Stonewall, the Stonewall Rebellion, the Stonewall Riots, or simply known as Stonewall. It was a series of spontaneous protests by members of the LGBTQ community in response to a police raid that began in the early morning hours of June 28, 1969, 54 years ago this month, at the Stonewall Inn in the Greenwich Village neighborhood of Lower Manhattan in New York City. See, patrons of the Stonewall and other lesbian and gay bars at the time in the neighborhood street folk fought back when the police became violent against the community. And riots were considered in those times as a very transformative moment of the gay liberation movement, of the queer movement, of the movement for LGBT rights in the United States. And it was far common for bars at the time to constantly, especially gay bars, to be constantly under attack and were routinely experience police raids. Officers quickly lost control of the situation at the Stonewall Inn on June 28th, 1969, and the tensions began to grow between New York City police and gay residents of Greenwich Village, which erupted into more protests for several nights later. And within weeks, the residents organized into activist groups demanding the right to live openly regarding their sexuality without fear of being arrested. Being arrested at that time for simply being and existing and being who we are as a people, for loving, for self-expressing our true authentic selves. And so I want to lift up this memory of the Stonewall riots, and I want to lift up the work of Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, because I understand that without their work today, there would be no Pride Month to celebrate and to gather. And I want to also name them as ancestors that have passed, that I give and hold much honor and tribute to, as we should as a community, give credit where credit is due, and also to recognize that we have come a long way in the past 54 years since Stonewall, and yet here we are, still fighting for our rights, still fighting for our being, our existence, and for rights across the board in different sectors in so many places. And so just want to remind us all that we come from a movement of radical organizers, of lovers, and of street folk fighting for our lives. Let us not forget, and let us continue to move forward together.
Thank you, RJ. Always important to know the history, such beautiful history, to have those ancestors. I see someone has shared in the chat, has moved into the space that we were naturally moving into, of just sharing some of the things that you have been feeling. And so as you see on the screen here, we have the feelings wheel. And depending on what type of screen you are watching us on, it might be too small. And so even in your space, if you are able to just look up the feelings wheel if you need to, if it's too small. And you may have seen the feelings wheel before, but we would love for you to just take a look at some of these feelings here and just choose 2 to 3. If that, any of the feelings that you have experienced in response to the anti-LGBTQ systemic violence that is happening in our communities. And I mean, there's a wide range of how you might define this sort of violence and these experiences. But if you could just share some of those feelings. So we'll pause here for a moment. And from our chat, I will note that we did have someone, thank you so much for sharing with us as an ally, feeling a lot of grief around friends with trans children having to move away because of the anti-trans laws, right? Like this systemic violence that is causing people to have to make these huge changes in their lives that they shouldn't have to make, right? So a lot of what we see here, grief, powerless, ashamed, it is very, very sad. Right. Brings up anger. I see anger, feeling frustrated. Right. So many emotions. I would imagine, perhaps some feelings of overwhelm, the stress. Were you going to jump in, RJ?
Well, I would imagine and echo all of that the anger and the frustration and the fearfulness of not only such times as these, but also honoring something that Neil has shared in the chat of things going on long before Stonewall happened, and acknowledging that there was so much going on always before pivotal moments in the movement, and also things that have continued to go on after these pivotal moments in movement, these kind of uprisings and these rebellions and these riots. However we relate to these moments, these movements for social justice, for queer justice, for trans justice, for liberation, that there are still long issues going on in the now and in the present that continue to impact us. So I just want to uplift that as well, because every year there is so many folks to give thanks for, and this definitely includes the Daughters of Bilitis and the Mattachine Society. 100% agree. And this also includes so many folks that will remain nameless, or not even reported and or recorded accurately within our LGBTQ shared history. So I just also want to bring that up to light as well. Thank you.
And thank you all for sharing those feelings and those thoughts in our chat there. So as we share these feelings that we're having and these experiences and these thoughts, we're curious to hear from you all, what is the response and the care that you are in need of or you wish to see across the board? We think about from friends or family, from allies, from the church. Certainly we are representatives of the church at large, particular responses and care that you want to see, and even from society. And then our second question there is, how can we support one another in these experiences and the work of care going forward in the midst of all of the systemic violence that is happening, the experiences that people are having? How can the community and allies be able to support what the needs are that are coming up. So we'll just take a little moment to pause here and hear from you all in the chat in regards to these two questions. Okay. So I see we got some responses here. So having some additional ways of taking care of people who are experiencing a variety of things. I see here, yes, for people who have experienced trauma, there are a variety of ways to engage trauma. I am a certified clinical trauma professional, and there's countless ways that we should be engaging the care that people need, right? And making sure that it is specific to those people and what their needs are, whether that's somatic ways of taking care of trauma, EMDR, there's countless ways to address that. As well as we see here education, right? So seeing a response around education that people are learning more about intersex and yeah. So having some more education for people who might not be aware of some of the things that they don't have, the education and awareness of that. Okay. Any other thoughts from you, RJ, especially as we're thinking about these questions? And even as we're pausing here, I do want to note the very thing that we're doing right now, right? Holding this sort of space is a response and a place of care that I hope that we are able to see more of across the church and across society, where we're able to support one another and we're able to hold space for one another's wide range of experiences with compassion.
And I think that calling on compassion, collective care for me has been a conversation as I've live in a red state, live in a state where trans healthcare has been under attack, live in a state where every part of the community has been under attack, from gender affirming care for youth to even my existence, the definition of sex being codified into legal law in the state of Tennessee as, quote, only biological, meaning gender binary rhetoric. And so there are so many fronts and ways that we're being under attack. And I think for me, it really comes down to this aspect of collective care. How are we taking care of each other? Because we know that we only have each other. And there's so many challenges that we as a community continue to face. And I do think that it will take several different interventions. It will take several different angles. It will take several different communities to step up, several different professionals, several different just aspects of life and where folks are engaging, whether that is your workplace, whether that is the church, whether that's school, whether that's your friends, your family, your allies, your chosen family, that it's important that we continue to stay connected with each other, especially when the system would have it so that we isolate rather than really be present with each other in community. And so I think that you just really hit it spot on with with compassion, and it really gets at this question of the work of care moving forward. And that I think that I've seen it, I've seen how we take care of each other through things like the buddy system, right? Like checking in on a friend when we're going out together, making sure that we get home safe at the end of the night, right? That the text or that phone call really does help to ensure each other's safety. And there's ways that we model that and we do that for each other. And I think that those models of care are already instinctively a part of the community. And I just hope that we can continue to tap into that, not only in moments of crisis, but also before, during, and after crisis.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Connecting, providing the care, and the compassion being at the center of that. Okay. So we do want to move. We want to thank you all for some of the things that you have posted in the chat and continue to share in the chat, please. We welcome that. We wanted to make sure that we, offered just a couple of tips on some of the ways to cope and restore with some of the things that you might be experiencing, some of these feelings of powerlessness or anger or, grief, some of the things that you all have shared. The first thing certainly is acknowledging those feelings, exactly what we are doing tonight, right? Acknowledging them and sharing them and being honest about how those feelings are impacting you personally and professionally. Journaling, just saying it out loud in a room, with yourself, or telling someone, telling God. It's interesting because sometimes we might overlook what we are actually telling God in our prayers. Are we, being honest with God about, I'm feeling angry about these laws that are being passed or trying to be passed, or I'm feeling angry about what's happening with the people around me, and being able to share that and that grief. Having patience with yourself, because sometimes we will try to push ourselves and still do everything that we're usually doing instead of decreasing our demands, delegating tasks to allow space for us to grieve and for our bodies to rest, right? One of the biggest parts of our experience is that we have these bodies, they get tired. And when we're experiencing heavy emotions, it impacts our bodies, it impacts our brains. And so we have to allow space for ourselves to rest and to restore. In addition to that, reducing some stimuli. So sometimes you will have to eliminate or reduce the use of social media, watching or reading the news, having triggering conversations with other people. We want to remain informed, but sometimes we do need to step away, right? To, again, allow ourselves to be restored. Let your brain rest. Engaging in some breathing and some grounding techniques. Many people know, I have the breathing exercises here, 4-7-8. So that would be like pausing, you breathe in for a certain amount of counts. Some people, depending on your ability, you might not be able to breathe in or breathe out for a whole 7 or 8 or even 4, but you adjust it, right, to what is working for you and just doing those counts. The 5-4-3-2-1 grounding exercise is one that a lot of people know of. Look around you and identify 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can smell, I think 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing that you can taste. And that will just bring you into the present moment when you might be feeling an overwhelm of emotions, okay? A last couple ways: creating and practicing rituals that will put your mind at ease. Prayer, lighting candles, making food intentionally, as saying, I'm cooking this meal and I'm going through this process of cooking in order to restore myself because I have been experiencing X, Y, and Z emotionally. Listening to music, making art, moving your body in other ways, engaging in a be still and know practice. So you might just sit or lie down and just say, in this moment, I'm just being still and I'm just knowing that God is with me, or knowing who I am, right? Affirming yourself. You can do holding and rocking. So actually like hugging yourself and rocking and having some movement in that way that does activate your parasympathetic nervous system to bring some calm to your body. Because again, in all of these things, addressing the body is very important. Taking care of our nervous system is very important. Talking to wise counsel, I first started off mentioning like we want to make sure that we're talking about how we're feeling. And so talking to wise counsel, having a therapist or a spiritual director, or I even see in the chat here the mention of connecting with elders, right, who have lived through the tough times. Connecting with elders when people were being killed, or those who lived through the beginning of AIDS, right? People who have experienced the history, who have wisdom from their experiences that they can offer to you. And that is a very particular type of care, I think, that is very special, right? And very sacred. And so having that wise counsel in your life that you can connect with, as well as nourishing yourself well with healthy food, drink, and moments of joy. And so we want to make sure, again, holistically, that we're taking care of ourselves when we are experiencing these heavy emotions and these experiences that are happening around us. Okay. Not only for the young, but giving importance to the elders. Yeah, giving importance to the elders. I also see here in the chat, yeah, the system is established to keep us down, isolated, disempowered. Yeah, being here and talking about it is a good start. Yeah, so we, again, having these spaces. And one of the other ways, I don't think that it said this outright, but having those shared spaces with people who you can be in that space and empower each other and listen to each other and offer each other that compassion, the resources, and so on. And so we have lost Reverend RJ. I got a message that there is a storm where Reverend RJ is and has knocked out the power. And so hopefully maybe they will be able to get back on with us before we close up in the next few minutes. But we wanted to, in this space, focusing on joy and hearing from you all in the chat what joy means for you, right? What brings you joy in your life? How will you engage joy this month? And how will you celebrate Pride this month? So just pause for a moment here and just hear from you all in the chat. What brings you joy, right? And I see here also, we have to create the spaces. They do not magically happen. Yep. We have to create these shared spaces, which is something that brings me joy. Being able to create these spaces, being able to hear from other people. It's funny, it's not just because I am who think that I become a therapist because I love hearing people's stories, right? But I love hearing people's stories, and I love being able to sit with people and see the wisdom that's in the space, right, from everyone, because we all come with our own wisdom. We all come with our lived experiences that deserve to be heard by other people and validated and honored. And so that is something that brings me joy. Being able to be here with you all this evening is something that also brings me joy, and also is a way that we get to celebrate Pride this month. So curious to hear from you all. Any other comments in the chat about joy and how you are celebrating Pride this month with yourself or others in your life? Also curious if there are things that are happening in your community or your congregations specifically for Pride, as I know there's a lot of events that go on during this month. So we'll just pause here for a moment to see if there's any more comments in our chat as we get ready to close up our time. And if there are any other comments, certainly as we're coming into the last couple of minutes, if anybody had any additional comments or questions, just overall, any other sharings that you would like to share in the chat, you can also do so at this time. And we'll see if Reverend RJ is able to get back in with us. So I'll pause for a moment. Okay, I see Audrey Lord listening one into speech. Can you share a little bit more about? Okay. Well, everyone, we'll see. Okay. Yeah, too many times women especially are talked over. Yeah. 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 So giving the space, what I take from that is just giving the space for people to be heard, right? Especially the voices who oftentimes are not heard. And one of the things as we go forward, in our collaboration with MBA and Alliance Q, we are planning some future events and opportunities. And so hopefully, you all will be able to continue to come to these events, and we'll have opportunities for people to share a little bit more and actually be able to hear your voices in some of these shared spaces and not just on the chat. And so as we move into yes, if you want to look up that reference and send it, yes, absolutely would love that. But as we move into our last few moments here, in closing, first, we just want to thank you all for joining us today and for sharing your feelings, for sharing, in the chat. Some of you shared, personal things that people in your lives are dealing with. You all are sharing very real emotions and experiences and thoughts. And so we just thank you for your vulnerability. We are honored that you would come and share openly with us in this space. We hope that this time was a blessing for you in small and big ways. And so thank you. Thank you for being here and sharing. As I mentioned, we are continuing to plan some collaborative events with MBA and Alliance Q. And so one of the ways that you can be involved and stay informed of our work with our mental health and wellness collaborations and work is to sign up for our newsletter at mbacares.org/newsletter. And there will be some check boxes that you can mark to let us know that you're interested in mental health and wellness topics. We offer mental health and wellness resources on our site, including resources on coping with difficult emotions and providing suicide loss. And so you can see all of our mental health resources on our website at mbacares.org. And so we look forward to connecting with you. And then, as always, if you'd like to go deeper in joining us to create communities of compassion and care by supporting the work of mental health and wellness financially, you can also donate on our website at mbacares.org/donate. And so as we leave this space tonight, focusing on joy, all right? We wanted to leave with a special song here to have you to just remain in a place of joy, to remember that joy is your birthright, right? And so as we leave this space, may you remember to center time to care for your soul. May your community also surround you with sustainable care. May your mind, body, and spirit be replenished each and every day. And may you go forth with pride and with joy and be your whole self, knowing that others cannot break your soul because God is with you and God loves you and God sees you as good. So we hope that you have a wonderful week, a wonderful rest of your Sunday, and a joyful Pride Month. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being with us. Thank you.
Release your mind, release your job, release the time, release your dream, release the stress, release your love, forgive the rest.